The whole reason stand-up comedy exists is that there's a subsection of gods who really like watching it when it's going poorly. I remember 10 years ago, you were in a really big room. Yeah, it's getting worse, isn't it? And I'm like, yeah. Patrons of the drinking establishments hated the stand-up so much that they would hide the stage and not tell anybody what night it was on.
Hi, welcome. My name is Wouter Monde. This is the Elektra podcast. A podcast in which comedians and I reminisce about gigs they'd rather forgotten about. It is named Elektra after a youth centre in the south of Holland that ran comedy gigs in the zeros and which was known among Dutch comedians as the hell of comedy. My guest is Glenn Wool, a fantastic comedian. Born in Canada, he now lives in the UK and he's performed all over the world. He visits Holland regularly. He's even been on a cycling holiday here. And if you don't believe me, check out his show Creator I Am But a Pawn on Spotify. And as of today, September 26th, his new show Fever Forever is also available on Spotify. I've seen the show live in Amsterdam and I highly recommend it. If you want to support the show and donate £1, dollar, euro or any currency of your preference, go to paypal.me/elektrapodcast. Or if you're a regular listener of the Dutch episodes, go to petje.af/elektrapodcast. Enjoy the show. This is the Elektra podcast with Glenn Wool. So first of all, thanks for being on the show.
No problem.
The reason I thought, I want to have you on the show is A, because I think you're a great comedian, but B, your new album is coming out this Saturday.
Yeah.
And you've toured with that for quite some time.
Yeah. Well, I'm 46 now and I started when I was 19. So that is 38 years.
Yeah. What was the hardest show of this tour?
The hardest show recently has been the one that didn't happen. It's funny. The longer lockdown goes, the less bad the shows seemed. You know, you can see the good part of anything. Like, you know, the one that stands out was. It was in Edinburgh. A very drunk woman was in the front row. And just sort of anytime you'd say something in a setup, she'd disagree with it, you know?
Oh, that's...
And then she was talking very loudly to her friend, and I had to say in the end, because I did the pay what you like scheme, which in that sense, if somebody
they don't buy a ticket to go to see the show, but at the end they pay whatever they feel the show was worth.
Yeah, and I feel quite a freedom to if you're not participating, like if you're heckling, that's one thing, but if you're just talking and drunk, it's just get out.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't, you haven't purchased your space yet, and you're not behaving accordingly. So I asked her quite kindly. I said, have you mischosen your entertainment for the evening? I think maybe you should just take this opportunity to leave. And it's because I knew a difficult part of the show was coming up, and if she couldn't handle the funner bits, you know, when it was getting to a point where I really needed her to listen,
yeah,
she obviously wasn't going to be able to do it.
And what would she say? What would she?
Well, she sort of like through one eye was like, yeah, maybe that is the best, but still like on getting up, she was like, "You were recommended to me." It's like, well, who did that? Because I'm gonna have to talk to them. But in the course of her trying to leave the performance space, she fell over in a drunken stupor. And it's just that one thing. Like, she was sort of a middle-aged woman, maybe 50, 60 years old. And as much as the crowd hated her, it's also a woman falling over, and you have that natural tendency to, so she's managed to put the crowd at dis-ease at every maneuver. Like, she couldn't even leave without having the crowd oh. And it really put a funk into the show. But I'd gotten her out. She had yapped her little yap right at the door. And I was in the middle of a bit about Northern Ireland. And that was what I'd had to say it 3 times. Like, it's just Northern Ireland. And so I had established the next line to the show was, my grandmother's from Northern Ireland, because I'd said it 3 times and then kicked her out. She got out the door and I went, oh, so my grandmother is from Northern Ireland. And an Irish guy at the back of the room went, I think you'll find that's the north of Ireland. I didn't even know that's a thing, but in Northern Irish, sometimes, like, there's, like, the language that you use shows them what side you're on. I always just knew it as Northern Ireland, but now, like, after all that, I got in an argument with an Irish guy, and I was so upset, I wasn't backing down. I was like, kept saying Northern Ireland to him, and he kept shouting the north of Ireland. So already a funk of a show now has sectarian like that. And I was I said, I tried to kick him out. Like, you get the fuck out too. I couldn't believe, like, that's when this guy thought, I bet you the performer really wants to have an argument about the semantics of the English language in regards to this small part of Ireland that I'm sure everybody gives a fuck about as much as I do. In the end, I was like, I said, well, you haven't paid a ticket, so you can get out. And he's like, I have paid a ticket. And then he tried to lie that he was, my manager had got him a ticket. Like,
why would you try to do that?
Well, yeah, because the only thing that would do was get the manager fired. So I was like, so if I call him right now, he knows who you are. And he's like, well, he might not know that. Yeah. I think it just, and then the rest of the show just limped towards the end. But I mean, that's the thing about Edinburgh too. You know, at least there's something to talk about happened.
Oh yeah, and this was during the festival, I guess.
Yeah, not this. Well, there wasn't one, but this would have been 3 years ago now, I think. Yeah, it was a.
And how does that mess up? Does it affect you inside your head? If you've dealt with this woman who's been chatting, you get her out and you think, okay, let's get on with the show. And then there's the next guy.
Yeah. I tend to think that there is, the whole reason stand-up comedy exists is that there's a subsection of gods who really like watching it when it's going poorly. And they can't make it tough on one person individually because they'll quit. So they have to make, like, every 700th show a real shocker. Just because if somebody didn't have the chops, then they couldn't deal with it. But I just know sometimes you get into a show and that the gods are watching, because it happens. Like, you'll get on, you'll be getting nothing from a crowd, and then you're on a roll. But you've got them because they've taken so long to get into the show they're actually paying attention by maybe the 7 or 8 minute mark, where usually you've got a longer bit because you've gotten a few laughs, you've got a roll, you've got a chance to rest a bit. It's like a boxing match. Because they've taken their time and getting into you, now you've got this really long bit where they have decided that they like you, but you're going to have to deliver. And just on that long bit, I swear to God, every time, just as the punchline, not even the punch sentence, the punch word comes, somebody will drop a glass or like ding, 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 ding. You know, like something will happen and everybody will miss the word. And there's no way of going, well, I said, well, you know, it's just, yeah. Yeah.
I like the idea of God to purposely make shows go bad. They would love this podcast.
Well, they probably were watching me trying to get my equipment set up earlier.
Let's see how this goes. Yeah. You've been to Edinburgh loads of times by now.
Yes. It must be 20 times now, even more.
And because at Edinburgh, you get to do your own solo show, which gets your own crowd in because people know you and come to see Glen Wool.
Yeah, ever decreasing numbers. Gets a little. I've had people bring that up to me, in the like as they're walking out, like slap my shoulder and like, oh yeah, I remember 10 years ago you were in a really big room. Yeah, it's getting worse, isn't it? And I'm like, yeah, it is. That's my job. And you're right. It's on the decline. Thank you. I'm now going to shake this bucket and hope you put some change in it like a hobo.
Oh, that must be so painful to have people say that on the way out.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've fostered a certain sort of nihilistic audience. Let's be fair. So it's not. I wasn't selling rainbows, so I can't be upset when the ogres have showed up.
Well, where I wanted to go was you do your solo shows, but you also have the Late and Lives and the Spank shows.
Yeah, I don't do those as much anymore. That's a young person's game, and I've got vocal cord nodules now too. So if I do too many shows in the night, then I can't do a show tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah. But you have done them when you were younger.
Right? Oh yeah, I did them all. I used to use I would use those for my beer and drug money, which would cause the evening to go even later. Sometimes I would just not sleep. It was a way of avoiding a hangover, I said to myself. It was quite a responsible take towards it. You know, you can't be hungover if you didn't go to sleep. But I'd like to stress now that those moments in my life are far and gone. I've got a toddler now and one on the way.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you. Lockdown was very, very good to me.
Are you gonna name it COVID?
Yeah, and when he turns 19, I'll tell him why he was named that. I couldn't masturbate in my house because my wife would never leave, so I had to jack off the old-fashioned way by fucking my wife. That's a joke from the act, by the way.
Yeah. The reason I brought up Late and Live and Spank and those late night shows is because they usually start around 11, 12 and pull in an already drunk and rowdy crowd.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're the loudest one, they tend to put you on towards the end, and yeah, it just got too much for me. I'm an old guy now. I I can still do them, but yeah, it just the older you get, the recovery time from nights like that is just longer. So I sort of prefer to go back. If it's Edinburgh, I'm much more likely to be eating ice cream on the couch watching a box set or something. Especially if my wife and kid haven't come along, I need that time to sleep.
Is there any one of those shows where you look back upon, especially now, if you're sitting on the couch eating ice cream and thinking, oh, I'm so happy I don't have to do that show over again?
Yeah, late in live was really difficult, and it turned into this thing. Like, I'd go there and I'd see really good acts struggling because the crowd just wanted to see somebody die. They weren't interested in good comedy. And sort of across the board, those late night shows have more turned into parlor games more than they are actual stand-up comedy shows. And maybe that's the point of it. Maybe stand-up comedy does have to morph into three guys playing Trivial Pursuit live or whatever, but yeah, that made it easy to quit, to stop doing those late shows, just because of what audiences were valuing more too.
Yeah. And usually when I do these interviews, the most horrible gigs usually have are at the beginning of someone's career, because you don't have all the tools and all the skills yet to turn a crowd around or have the show go your way. Well, you started out in Canada.
Yeah.
What was the scene like when you started out? Were there loads of options to do comedy, or what was it like?
No, there wasn't. There was gigs, but they were hard, and you had to drive a long way to do them. And to this day, I salute those gigs and cherish that they were there for me to do, because by the time I got to easy gigs, they were really easy to me. Like the gigs in Edinburgh, like the Late in Lives and all that, for me, like they were, like I'd been doing Northern Canada runs where, like you'd go into a town where the mill had just closed, or, you play in Indian reservations, like a lot of really rough sort of gigs but good people, but just sort of rough and ready up in the wilderness. And you learned how to be heard and to get to the point of what you're saying. You weren't scratching your head. Oh, well, here's something that's kind of me. You thought of it today. You didn't think of nothing on the way there. I did a gig because what would happen, especially in British Columbia, there was a thing called the cabaret license. And if a bar had a cabaret license, it meant that on the weekends they were allowed to stay open for an extra 2 hours. And the only way but you had to have live entertainment at least once a month to get the cabaret license.
Yeah.
The cheapest form of live entertainment is stand-up comedy. So these venues would begrudgingly have stand-up comedy, but the patrons of the drinking establishments hated the stand-up so much that they would hide the stage and not tell anybody what night it was on. So around 7 o'clock on a Tuesday, the manager would run up and take the 2 potted plants off the stage, unfurl a backdrop, turn on the lights, and just yell into the mic, "Here's your comedian, Glenn Wall." And the disappointment on the faces of the people at the tables, like, "Oh, no!" They changed what night, so people couldn't predict it. And you're up there like, "So, where do you work?" The guy's like, "I have a job. What are you talking about? Drinking in the shittiest bar in town at 3 p.m. You think I work?"
Oh, wow. I think that I've done 40 episodes up to now. This is the worst way to get a gig going.
Well, I remember the one time they did it. It was up in the middle of British Columbia, and they'd hidden the stage beside a table full of lumberjacks that had just been in the woods for 2 months. Like they'd only been around each other, and this was their first night out after basically living as animals. And they tried to find the darkest, quietest corner of the bar, just sort of like submariners decompressing. Next thing you know, a spotlight shined on half their head, and fat-faced wolves up there. "So, what do you do for a living, lumberjack? What do you do, lumberjack?" Transpired that the last meaningful conversation these people had been with a squirrel.
And how long would you have to do? Because I'm guessing the manager wouldn't put up several comedians. He'd just pay one a shitty wage and make it last as long as possible.
No, what he would do, sorry, this thing has just come on for no reason. What they would do, I would be the opener, and there would be a headliner. So I'd go up and do a half an hour, and then the headliner would do an hour. And you had to do that because it was weird about bar managers. They'd begrudged having the comedy. They'd begrudged having to pay for it. Although those extra 2 hours that they're getting on the weekends, they would be making 30 grand. So the $500 they were going to give to the comedians, it was one of those things. It was just, bad business all around. But then when it came to like the time, they were like, "And it better last an hour and a half." I thought you hated us. Why don't we just go up, But they would be in the back going, "Keep it going, keep it going." Yeah. And I mean, that's what I've always said. That's my biggest advice to anybody starting out is get your license and have a car. And the smart thing I did too is I had a 2-seater. So you couldn't just hire me to drive. I had to, go, "Oh, you just MC, you take the middle and the headliner." Nah, I'm the opener and the MC. You get more time if you're the only one if you can only take one other act.
When you said, those shows made Late Live look easy, I thought, how the hell can Late Live look easy? But
I know. When I first started coming to Europe, and this would be, I think I came when I was 22 or 23. Yeah, I did Denmark, and I regaled them with those tales. And I mean, those would have been the gigs that I'd come straight from to do. And then Denmark, just like, these people didn't even speak the same language as me. They were still like, drunken Vikings were like, "Oh, this is a lot better."
And how long had you been doing those shows in Canada?
I did stand up in Canada for about 3 years, 4 years, and then I won when I was 19. I won $10,000 on a scratch ticket, and unbelievably, because I'd already started stand up, I took the money and saved it. I didn't do anything with it. I just,
Oh, wow.
yeah, I knew it was good because once I started stand up, I knew that's what I wanted to do. Like I knew I wanted to be a stand up since I was 12, but I'd started to have a little bit of success. You know, I was getting these road gigs, so I felt like, yeah, I am a stand up. And
Yeah.
but I just sort of I put the money in the bank. I mean, I spent like $1,000 of it, but the rest went in the bank. And then about 2 years later, I got in a car accident on the road, and I wrote my car off in like it was like a 3-car pile up, and I had a little whiplash. I might have exaggerated that a bit. Although I say that now, I still do have a bad back, so it might have just been the folly of youth, and yeah. But anyway, so I get in this car accident. I get the money. I get a little bit of whiplash money. I get a little bit of money for the car. And at that point, I was like, well, I could just replace the car and keep doing these gigs in Canada. I was starting to get offers to go out to Eastern Canada for Yuck Yucks. And I just took a look at it, and I thought, I'm going to make a move now. I'm going to go to Europe. I'm going to go and see, because this is when not many Canadians had even gone over. We were starting to hear whispers, like magazines were coming out of England, like comedy magazines, you know, where they really were focused on it. And I thought, yeah, that's where I see myself going more. I don't want to, because as fun as those gigs were to do, it did skew what you were writing about, you know. Because you had to write jokes to make those people laugh. And I was writing other longer form bits that I could never really do. And then I thought, yeah, I'll take all that money. So yeah, a car accident and a lottery win.
Just to stop you there about the writing for those kind of crowds. I was checking your page on Wikipedia, and it said you discovered comedy by attending a Bill Cosby show.
Yeah.
Is that right? I thought
for years it was the only like nice story about my past, where like when I was 12, my parents, like Bill Cosby came to Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, where we lived. It was really it was odd. Like he was our sort of family's favorite comedian. We used to listen to his albums when we were in the, you know, driving across Canada in a truck for our holidays. And he came, and I saw him, and I was just like, this is incredible. And it was always, you know, I was able to say, you know, I might present something on stage, but you know, Bill Cosby was actually the guy who got me into it.
Yeah,
and
but
I can't really tell that story in the same.
No. But if Bill Cosby is what got you started in comedy, and is in maybe some way the image you have of comedy, and then you go and do these shows for a table of lumberjacks, you can't do Bill Cosby material for them.
No, the best thing you could do would be spike their drinks. That'd be the best. You could use a Cosby piece of material, but it wouldn't be from his comedy show.
How did that change your way of writing when you came over?
Yeah, I think it just I don't think it changed my writing. It changed what I could talk about. Just some of the jokes that first got me kind of recognized on to elevate to a different sort of level. I was good with religion. I was good with religion and drug jokes. And I think in Canada, now of course they would have got the drug jokes, but I think the religious stuff either people wouldn't have got, like, if in Canada the people either aren't religious or they're very religious, where Europe had a more sarcastic attitude towards it, like you could say stuff, people, it was easier to speak candidly about religion, where I don't think it would be as such in Canada. And it's not because you would have offended people. I think a lot of them just wouldn't have got it.
Yeah. But still, it can be a very touchy subject for some people.
Yeah.
Has it ever happened that you were talking about religion on stage and someone thought, nope, we're not having this?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's usually after the show, too. Christians would approach me, and I wrote a bit about it once because a guy actually did say it. He came up and goes, "How's it feel to know you just offended a room full of Christians?" I was like, "Good." Now you know how I feel when you talk. I think in retrospect, I think that was more of a pugnacious answer to somebody because I felt challenged, and nowadays I'm not.
Hi, it's me again. If you're enjoying this podcast, please tell your friends and share it on social media. If you want to support the show and donate £1, $1, euro, or any currency of your preference, go to paypal.me/elektrapodcast. Or if you are a regular listener of the Dutch episodes, go to petje.af/elektrapodcast. Okay, back to Glenn.
I don't revel in upsetting a whole room full of people as I would when I was younger, because I think sometimes too it's a badge of honor for comedians where they were like, they did not like me, and it's like, well, you shouldn't really have taken a wage for that gig if you didn't know how to play that room. It's like, come on, if somebody's, if you see that there's a bunch of kids in the room, don't swear and tell dirty jokes. You just have to play the crowd that's there. But to a certain extent, because I also believe that I don't think that there's any bad comedians like on the planet. I think that mostly the horror stories have been through poor booking choices. Oh, you can have the best comedian in the world, but you put them on a cruise ship. Well, no, that's people. That's not what the people on a cruise ship want to hear. So
it usually comes down to poor booking choices or technical stuff gone wrong, or a stage that's been hidden and a show that's not been announced. Have you done cruise ships?
No, thankfully no. But I will not disparage them as such, because a lot of my friends have now moved on to the boats, and they say that they're fun and that they're there's a crowd there and it's good. I think it's important to honor anybody who's doing this job, and just because it's on a boat doesn't mean that that's not a crowd of people that want to laugh and want to have fun. And there's a lot of horror stories in comedy, and the comedians they argue about whether or not they're true, but I've heard that this happened. 2-week cruise, and it was quite an easy gig. You had to do 2 shows, one at the first day, and then do a different one a week later. So you do a half-hour show first night, weekend, another half-hour show, different material because it's going to be the same
crowd,
people on the boat. And all you have to do is that. They'll pay you, feed you, and you get a 2-week cruise.
Yeah. Great offer.
Guy goes up first night. doesn't read it. Can't. He bombs. Like he really stinks. He tanks it. He bombed so badly that the crowd, the other cruise ship, got together, colluded, and decided that it would ruin their cruise if they were even in the presence of this gentleman for any amount longer. And they certainly didn't want to see what he had to say on his second show. But they're out in the middle of the ocean now. So the cruise ship company had to send a helicopter to the cruise ship, land it, and the comic had to get off as the rest of the passengers assembled and shook their fists at the sky. And it's constantly debated whether or not it happened. And to that, I would say, do not look too deeply into that story, because there's every chance.
I don't care. It's a great story.
And then what are we doing? We're just telling some story because it's got a helicopter in it. No.
What is the worst time you bombed, or the worst bombing you ever had on stage?
So many. It's like your kids. Which one's your favorite? They're all for different reasons. Boy, you'd think yeah, I think I blocked them out. I'm out. Yeah, then this is gonna sound shitty because I'm not actually copping to a bomb here. I remember the worst injustice I ever received on stage. I did a corporate back when they used to put me on television. They would hire me for these things, but I won't change my act, like, especially in that, like, you can't really change your act for corporate because you don't have enough time to figure it out. So you just have to go with, well, they booked me, you know?
Yeah.
Somebody somewhere said, though, this would be the kind of thing. And it was, I didn't really know what was going on. I got there late. I get on stage and they've hung these balloons on the stage that say Money Corp. And I was just like, that is the most evil sounding business. Like, does Superman come and fight you sometimes? Money Corp. And but I killed. I absolutely killed. I got an encore at a corporate. Encored. And this is the thing about corporates is they're horrible, but they're good money. So you do them. Yeah. I basically was going on. I think I was on $5,000 for that show for 20 minutes. So the fact that I even did a encore, that's me giving them $1,000.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not on any extra money. That is totally about the ego of saying, like, I just wanted the story of, yeah, I got a encore. This is gonna look good in like a letter to get other corporates. Like, yeah, he stepped up and smashed it.
Exactly. Before you go on, can you just quickly explain why corporates are horrible, even though they pay a lot of money?
Well, they're basically Christmas office parties, or they're office parties. Yeah. You know, they're a business. You generally everybody knows each other. There's a hierarchy, so even if you've made other people laugh, if you hadn't made the big guy laugh, there'd be 7 sycophants watching to see if he laughs. So it's like playing to a whole room full of firemen or cops, you know, like they're very hard to make laugh because they're like little wolf packs in their own mind. And if the big one doesn't like it, well, we don't like it either. So it's like that. And I'd stepped up and I'd demolished. And then like a couple weeks later, I get a call from the corporate wing of the agency I was with at the time, and they're like, "Well, they don't want to pay." It's like, what? But apparently, it had been it was a celebration, inter-office celebration, that they had changed their name to Money Corp, and what a good idea it had been to do such a thing. And I had sort of embarrassed whoever had come up with that idea, but I will stand by it. Although, and they did pay in the end. Did they? They used to be Bureau de Change, and now they're Money Corp. So anytime I walk through a airport,
oh yeah, that's big corporation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's the worst death I've ever had. I got an encore.
I got an encore, and in the end, they paid 5,000.
Yeah. That's my worst memory of comedy. I mean, it was a damn nightmare.
But as you said, poor booking choices. Let's go back to that, because that's usually the reason why a gig goes bad. Not because you as a comedian are bad, but because there's the sound's not right, or there's no lighting, or people are standing. And you did loads of music festivals, right?
But, I would say too that that because that happened 10 or 15 years ago. It gave birth to the new age of bad shows where you can have a really good show, but one person didn't like it. And then it turns into a bad show because of what they do. And it'll go from if you say something that they don't understand, or if it's got a buzzword in there, instead of either just discreetly going, "This isn't for me. This is perhaps over my head," you know, and I will now quietly check out of this. People will make a big stink, try and ruin the show. In that, like, and it's upsetting them more that they now think that, you know, you're whoever they've placed in your head by saying that. They're now mad at everybody else, and this is their stand, because now they're going to get attention, and they're going to try and you know, they are honestly into the, you know, because they live in these little bubbles and echo chambers, and then when they get out in the real world and find that people don't agree with everything that they say, and often have well-structured arguments about why they don't, then it becomes this, well, I've got to burn it all down and I don't have to listen to this. I opened for Stanhope at the Brixton Academy, and those people are drunk. Doug attracts drunks.
Yeah.
So it's certainly how I found him. And I went up, and it's just I mean, they're a joy to play to, because those are some of the most open-minded liberal people, like real liberals.
Yeah.
Not like libertines, like just you couldn't offend them. You could make them not laugh. Like, they're not going to laugh at just anything. But I mean, these are people that are they're what open-minded people look like nowadays.
Yeah. And they're a Doug stand-up crowd, so
yeah, they're great.
They know what they're coming for.
Yeah, like, because Doug is an authentic man, and maybe one of the smartest dudes I know. Well, he is one of the smartest dudes I know. So anything that he says, he's thought through, and he can, it's just obvious. He knows what he's talking about. Even if you disagree with him, you can't disagree with how he said it or why he thinks it.
Yeah.
And I think he's probably the best we've got right now. So that it's the people that are attracted to that show are generally good people. And I was doing the opening slot, and I was just enjoying the shit out of it. Just say, if you've ever seen Brixton Academy just erupting because I can see why dictators like giving speeches for so long. you really get whipped up, and but they're drunks, and this woman, I could hear her. She was right in the middle, and she was screaming like a banshee during some of this stuff, but it didn't matter because I had the crowd, I had the focus, and they were smart enough to know not to pay attention to her because she's a drunk.
Yeah.
In a way that I think with if you'd had a more safe act, like another crowd of people would have made the mistake of everyone looking at her, like sometimes you can ruin a joke if a crowd's dumb enough. If somebody gets up in the middle of a joke, everybody will look at them like, like they need a piss. It's okay. That's not part of the show. Now I got to loop back and make sure you heard because I saw all your heads snap that way. But they were glossing over it because she's just obviously just drunk. I finish. I bring Dougie up, and I was talking to my manager after the show, and apparently that woman was because she then in the middle of Doug's show took him up on stuff he was saying, like, that's racist. It wasn't racist. It had mentioned another country, and then, in her pea brain, well, we don't speak of other countries. Well, yeah, we do. And this is where we do it. So, and she stormed out of the gig. So in the end, and she, this isn't even like, this isn't a night that she could have just ended up at. This is Brixton Academy. You're on the floor. It's a 40-pound ticket. And you're at a Doug Stanhope show. And you still don't expect out of yourself at any point that you needed to research that. Yeah. I'm just going to wait for buzzwords. But I really think like it was in her. She'd obviously come with a chip on her shoulder in some way, in that she was trying to do it to me. Like she was aiming for Doug, but I got out there first, and she was like, "Oh my God, here's another load of concepts that can't all get in my head." just accept that sometimes people talk, and you can't interrupt them because you're confused.
Yeah. What is the weirdest or most offensive heckle you've ever had?
The one I liked, and again, this is terrible because it wasn't me that it happened to, but I was in the room when it happened. A buddy of mine at Sydney Comedy Store. A buddy of mine is funny comic. And the MC, like there's like 9 of us on in an MC. It's just a compilation night. MC's been going up, in between all the acts, doing his thing, and has established that one of the people in the front row is a 15-year-old emo guy. You know,
Yeah.
black hair, you know, dyed black hair, black eyeliner, you know, a shirt with a mauled carcass on it of some description.
Just your typical emo guy.
Yeah, you know, he's and we've all been there, and God bless him for it. He's come to a comedy club. You know, who knows what he thought he was going to get there, but he's trying. He's trying his hardest, but you know, life's tough when you're 15. And my buddy goes up in the middle, does okay. Does all right. He's and it happens to everybody, but he just has an okay show. Enough that I didn't think that the MC should have pointed it out at all. He should have just glossed over, done a little material, brought the next person up. But the MC gets back on stage, goes to the emo kid. Hey, what'd you think of that guy? And he went, I hate him more than I hate myself. That's a lot of hate.
Oh, yeah. And if someone would have said that about me, I'd put it on my poster. That's a great blurb.
Well, that was the thing. The comic had gone out the back door and didn't hear it. And I told him the next day at the club, and this is why he's my friend. He didn't get upset. Fuck, he was slapping his knee, laughing, and closed his show that night with a story. Got like a big round of applause. I'm like, that's what you do. That's,
yeah.
You know, in stand-up, you don't get offended if something funny happens. That's yours. That's good. Something funny happens. You know, it's okay to be the butt of a joke, because in reality, you're not. You know, like. I got bits where, you know, my wife will say the funny thing, and I'll tell it on stage, and you can see it's like people going, yeah, she got him, and I'm like, you think anybody got? You got. Yeah, he's an idiot. Well, you paid me, so I might be an idiot, but you needed to pay to be in my presence.
One thing I wanted to ask you is you've done loads of music festivals.
Yes.
How do you find those to do comedy at?
I generally don't like them. I generally am there because it looks cool on a poster. I was just thinking about that the other day. I did one in Belgium called Pukkelpop.
Yeah.
And I did it only because Iron Maiden was the headliner. So I was going to be on a poster with Iron Maiden, and I got there, and it was just like my gig was on at noon. It was just wonderful, and Iron Maiden was going to be on at like 9. There was a special area for performers that was in front of the whole crowd. So there was going to be like a thronging crowd of like 20,000 people or what have you. And then a section off area for us with tables and a little button on the table that you press when you'd like more beer. And then Iron Maiden would be in front of us. And yeah, there was it was perfect. Got up, did the show. The show was a bit weird. I don't know if this is just drugs or if this actually happened, but I think there was a little person dressed like a Nazi. I'm not sure. Like it was part of the show, but like a dwarf or a little, you know.
Yeah.
And they had it was part of something that had happened, but it was just because I couldn't speak Flemish or whatever language they were imparting, but it was part of somebody's show. So it was like one of those, like, is this a rally or?
And was he on before you? Do you mean like
Yes.
that?
Yes, I was closing out the show, but there was definitely, again, though, drugs take a toll. I don't know if anybody else could see him, but I don't know what that it wasn't like a Nazi rally. It was actually it was odd that Iron Maiden was even on. Like if you looked at the other acts, it was like much more a pop festival, but that's just one of the things, like when you're gigging in other countries and you don't know, you really don't know what people are up to, and you're like, how is this part of anything? Is that how he always dresses? But it was fun, and after I went out, we were sitting in the backstage. I was waiting for the transport to take me back to the hotel because I was just going to go sit in the hotel and come back for Iron Maiden. And I made the mistake. I had there was beer in the dressing room, and on an empty stomach, I started consuming Belgian beer. And boy, oh boy, did I get I was hammered. And yeah, I got so drunk that I missed Iron Maiden. Like the whole festival, everybody was hammered. Like everybody backstage, because it's Belgian beer. It's like 12%. It's like drinking wine out of a beer bottle. And I just screwed it up, and I didn't get the food in before. Like you can't do that. You can't do that at noon, and you can't do it on an empty stomach. And we ended up. I called it, so we just have to go home because we were making fun of the bands backstage, like, and not succinctly, just like laughing and pointing at them because they're kind of ludicrous when you just see them and they're not like, they're just walking around backstage with their hair and curlers or whatever they're doing. It felt like a fight was brewing between. Like we were just too drunk to giggle quietly, just laughing and pointing.
And then you missed Iron Maiden, the only reason you said yes to do the festival.
Yeah. Like I probably could have met Iron Maiden. Like it was that much access with this pass. Yeah. I have few regrets, but that one is. But again, I mean, I didn't do that story. That story ended up in my award-winning Edinburgh show, No Land's Man. So in the end, I won because I got material out of it. So if I'd gotten to meet Iron Maiden, I never would have had the story to tell, which is the more important thing.
Wise words. You said we're playing abroad. You've played all over the world, and you've been to Holland quite a few times.
I love it.
You love it, but I recall Steve Hughes. He has a bit about playing before the Dutch and saying, "Oh, they'll stare at you and make a grown man cry."
Do you know? I was with Steve when that happened. That was It was me, Hughesy, and Neville Raven. We all used to live together. I think Neville lives in Holland now.
He's moved to Brighton a couple of years ago.
Oh, good on him. Yeah, I haven't seen him in a while, but we lived together in South London, and it was the Comedy Calf got a hold of one of us and said they want to do an English night, and we were like, "Well, we got the gig right here in the house." I'm pretty sure it was me because I'd been over a few times before. So yeah, we all went together, and I think with Steve it was an accent problem. He was speaking in too much of an Aussie accent, and the Dutch couldn't understand him. So, and he would, you know what the problem was? He was doing a bit about going to the beach, and they thought he was saying bitch.
Oh, yeah.
So they thought he was like Eminem. It's really misogynist. And he's just talking about the beach. But it was true. Like and I've seen the Dutch have done it to me one time before, but that was a wine-based accident where I should not have been on a comedy stage, and I had come up with this idea that I would go up and speak gibberish, but try to make it sound Dutch, and then at the end go, "See, how do you like it?" In my head, it was like, "Oh, they'll get that I don't speak their language." But it just sounded like, "How do you like it?" And then I was like, what? Actually, that has reminded me of the one of the more difficult shows I ever had. In Sweden, I was doing something similar to that. I was doing the Swedish Chef at them.
Yeah.
And I was just constantly going like that between jokes, and it got a little bit off the top, and then it was really not working. But I persevered. I knew that there was laugh. These are Swedes. It's the Swedish Chef. It's world renowned, known to be funny. Why won't they go along with this? And I really drove it into the ground, like, and I did. So I did all this stuff, and at the end of the show, a Swede that had lived in America came up to me and said, "I understood what you were talking about, but we didn't get the Muppet Show here." So they really didn't know what you were doing.
Oh. I can understand why a Swede would see that and think, no, I don't find this very funny. But if you don't even know what it is referencing to.
No, it just you're like you could do it in any language, and it's odd because that Swedish thing had happened before the Dutch one, where I basically was doing that. It must have been in there, but yeah, again, it wasn't a paid gig. It was I was already on tour in Holland, and they just asked if I wanted to swing by and do a set, yeah, it was, yeah, I'd been drinking. Well, I don't do that anymore. I tend to I don't drink before the shows, and a lot of the time I don't drink after anymore either. It's because that's what happened. That's what happened in the weekend that Husey had been bombing when they thought he was saying bitch. I'd been having great shows, just because I'd been there before, and I kind of knew how to play the Dutch crowds. But what is it
that sets us apart from other crowds? If you say, I know how to play a Dutch crowd.
Don't be worried about the silence. They're listening, and I think my background in those really tough gigs it made me like silence doesn't bother me because I know that it could be worse than this. they could be talking to each other. But over the course of that weekend, I think by the end of it, I was having as tough of shows as Steve because I was just getting rat-arsed the whole time. I don't think I slept that whole weekend, and it just, progressively got worse and worse and worse. Yeah, that did used to happen to me sometimes. I used to call myself Mr. Friday Night because over the course of a weekend, whoever came on the Friday saw what I was capable of, and then. Yeah.
Is there any show particularly you would like to go back to now and be Mr. Friday Night and show them what you're capable of rather than what you showed them in the past?
A show I'd want to redo.
Or a city maybe, or...
Yeah. I don't know, man. I'm pretty philosophical with things like that. I always think even your mistakes are important, So if I'm happy with the place I'm in now, you can't go back and tinker with the past.
Yeah.
You change the timeline, you might not end. And I was thinking that the other night, like about life after death, or I hope that if there is, that you get to watch all of the different timelines where you made the different decisions. see, because that's all you can do in real life is fret and go, oh, what if I'd done it this way? What if I'd done it that way? But you never think about the consequences of.
And maybe you would end up like one of the gods watching on all the failures you had.
Yeah.
Great stuff, man. Thanks a lot.
Thank you too. That was absolutely wonderful.
That was it. The Elektra podcast with Glenn Wool. Follow Glenn on social media. Check out Viva Forever on Spotify and go see him whenever you get the chance. Until next Elektra, goodbye.